Bron Harrison here from Be Rhythmic, where we believe in a world where people can heal, grow, be moved and feel good through music.
Benjie Williams is the owner and founder of Earthen Rhythms, one of Australia's leading African Drumming Circle Facilitators. Benjie Williams has trained in West African drumming, percussion and dance for more than 20 years. In 2002, he started his own drumming group called Earthen Rhythms, now based in Newcastle, New South Wales. He's led classes, workshops and performed throughout Australia and overseas. He has worked with many corporate groups, organisations, schools, after-hours care groups, universities, children's groups, the disability sector, charities, men's health groups, and has performed at numerous festivals and private parties throughout the country. He's been mentored by the amazing John May from Hands, Heart, Feet, where John introduced him to the djembe and its ability to empower people, connect individuals, and as an instrument and a tool in finding joy. Benjie went on to train with some of the world's leading djembe African drumming masters. As a natural progression to building community through rhythm, Benjie travelled to Hawaii in 2013 to learn from the world-renowned drum circle facilitator Arthur Hull. Under Arthur's tuition and guidance, Benjie's skills were reinforced, providing him a powerful skill set to support and nourish and build community through drumming circles. Earthen Rhythms holds incredible corporate team building and wellness retreats, health and wellness programs, disability service events and programs, school programs, preschool shows, one of which you did today, private functions like birthdays and kids' parties or hens and weddings, bar mitzvahs and drum making retreats. Benjie's teaching style reaches the roots of West Africa and provides participants with an uplifting experience that encourages freedom of expression and fun. Benjie's just returned back from Bali, both teaching and learning about drumming. Benjie, welcome home and welcome to the Be Rhythmic podcast.
Thanks so much, Bron. Fantastic to be here.
Awesome. Look, tell me, firstly, why drum?
Yeah, good question. And the immediate response is, why not? You know, it's one of these things with drumming, for me, it's such an accessible music instrument. So particularly the djembe, a lot of people use it now and it's wrongly named the bongo, but you know, there's the djembe is the West African drum where it's got that one skin. You can make very simple sounds on it. It makes it very accessible for beginners and anybody to start. But the reality is if you watch an African play a djembe, you'll know there's no ceiling. And I've spent 20 years now playing it and practicing, and I'm nowhere near as good as one of those guys. So there really is an unobtainable ceiling somewhere up there that we could all just spend a lifetime trying to master. So I love it. Why drum? Not only is it something like a pursuit of mine, but when I first started drumming, I felt immediately what it was doing for me, how it engaged my concentration and then engaged me with the group of people that I was with and creating music. And then suddenly other people were dancing around us as when we had a little drum circle. So, wow, the immediate sort of inclusion into the world of being a musician and like creating music was fairly instant for me. And so initially I was hooked. I think that's probably the beginnings of it. I was just lucky enough to see a friend of mine saw a poster on a cafe wall in Richmond in Western Sydney. Yeah. And we just went along and started drumming. So that's how I got into it and how it all progressed. And then I saw how it changed other people around me, not only, you know, for the drumming and dancing side, but then working with mental health and just everyday adults actually suffering from depression or, you know, having stressful lives. It was really a moment of uplift, that hour or hour and a half they'd come to a drum class. And quickly I realized what an incredible impact it was having for some people. When a massive dude comes up to you in the street, some random student of yours you haven't seen for quite some time, gives you a big bear hug and says, thank you so much. Thank you so much for, you know, having that drum class. You didn't realize, but I was going through a very depressive period at that time that I was coming into your class. And it got me through each week. So thank you.
How incredible.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about the health benefits of drumming and the wellness side of drumming.
Yeah, well, that's certainly not something that I immediately, was drawn to in drumming. Of course, I was just drawn to the fun side of things, and organically, yeah, like experiences like that fella coming up to me in the street. Then working with different special needs services like the Samaritans, Mission Australia, Aftercare, all these different groups that there are around. I just saw how drumming provided a space where, yeah, it was an easy thing. People could just come and be a part of it. And then they had this place where they were interacting with each other in a non-verbal way. So they were able to, we're able to provide a space for social inclusion. And in a way, it creates community, but also connection that's not confronting. Really, we're all at the same level. When you walk into a drum circle, like that's just of beginner drummers, there's nobody really that needs to be above another person. It's not a hierarchical thing. So everybody's on a level playing field. Everybody has the opportunity to express themselves in the same way. You've, of course, got introverts and extroverts in the circle, but it's the job of the facilitator to help everybody be heard and to get everybody listening to each other, interacting. And then once that starts, that's an amazing experience to see how people, just get into the groove so quickly.
So cool, so cool. In both Be Rhythmic and Earthen Rhythms, we've got trained psychologists in our teams.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about drumming and mental health.
Yeah, well, there's been so much research now coming out of the States. It's been incredible. There's a lot of anecdotal material on drumming and how good it feels. And I think just to quickly summarize the stereotype when people think of a drum circle, really, most people that I've asked that question to think of the dreadlock hippie sitting in a park in the sun, sitting around having a big thunder drumming, kind of boompity boompity boom, with their eyes closed, not listening. But really, when you break that down and look at that person and think rationally what's going through that person's mind, they're really in a state of bliss, aren't they? I mean, and that kind of scares some people because, that person, they're looking at the person with judgment. Oh, that's a hippie, they're a dropout. They're not really giving a care to, these things that you should be thinking about in the world, the pressures of everyday modern society, mortgages, car loans, and all the other things, what the kids are going to be doing. What am I going to cook for dinner? How can I excel at my job a bit better? So the hippie in the park, we're extracting that essence and allowing everyday people to have a moment of that in time, maybe an hour to 90 minutes worth of that sort of stuff. And really, we're taking away that stigma of being the hippie in the park, because essentially what it is, that what I've come to realize, that it's mindfulness in action. When you play that music, if you're not present, then you're not really in the music. And as soon as you fall out of being present in the moment, you'll lose the rhythm. So the music then requires you to be present. What I understand too is if you listen to music, what I've heard from great podcasts, including All in the Mind on ABC and other psychologists, and the analysis on music, the studies, is that if you listen to music, and we all know this easily, if you listen to AC/DC versus Bach, they're two different extremes of emotions, and it can pull you out of your current state of being, say if you just chuck on AC/DC or Bach. But that creates one set of brainwaves or synapse, fires the synapses in the brain in a certain way. If you play music, a guitar, violin, a drum, whatever, by yourself, you've got to be focused. But the thing is, you're not listening to anybody else and creating music together. So as soon as you start playing music and listening to somebody else and interacting as musicians do in a band or an orchestra, for example, that really fires up the synapses. It creates, the brain is then occupied on so many levels. Now you're playing, coordinating your own body, and you're listening to the third party that's external to you, and you're interacting. Now then, if you layer up on in the moment music making, you don't know where it's going. So it's a journey. It's like being on an adventure, but musically. So that's some of the great stuff with the mind. With the studies, it reduces blood pressure. It's been shown to do that. Barry Bittman's great with that. reduce anxiety and stress by bringing people in the moment. And I see that in modern drum classes, and I'll be doing it again on Wednesday with everyday adults. There's also evidence to show that it balances socio-emotional disorders. So I've seen that in action with participants from particularly Mission Australia. Of course, creates connection, and in a day and age where we're so connected by our phones more than ever, really, when we're on Facebook, nobody's going to come to the door. They're not always coming to the door and having dinner and sitting down for a chat. So we're engaged with people, but we're not face to face. And that's the real connection with humans. We love to read and see people's faces. And so in a drum circle, you've got real people sitting in real time just across from you. And it's just good fun, it is great fun. I've seen many people at the end of a 9-week session, I offer for them to come and be part of a performance, and it absolutely intimidates them. But in doing that and going through that process, sometimes feeling a little bit of anxiety, they're a bit unsure about it to begin with and super scared at the start of the performance. But afterwards, one lady, she said, if I could just bottle the essence of what I feel right now, life would be very good all the time.
Totally agree. If we could bottle that feeling after a performance, isn't that such an amazing feeling?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's so cool. Mindfulness in action.
Yes.
That is so potent. Because there's something to be said when you're, when you are mindful, or you are meditating, or you are, just being present. There is something about drumming or playing any musical instrument really, that brings you into that sense of focus.
Absolutely, yeah. And look, when I have drummers that are just starting, and there is a cognitive part of the brain where you need to, use your intellect to coordinate the hands and get the beats. And is that 4 beats or is that 5 beats? And quickly, the Africans, because it's an oral culture, they're not counting. You ask my African teachers, where is the one? They say it's here, 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 and here. The one is where you imagine it to be. So quickly, I encourage people to get out of the cognitive part of the brain when they're learning, into the sort of vocal or the singing part of the brain, create a song, no matter what it might be. If it's 3 beats, Go Mala, borrowed from Takatina, or say Marabayasa, Bum Chiki Bum Cha. Use the words and then put it on cycle, because if you sit and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it just breaks down. It doesn't create a rhythm in your mind, and there's no connection. So yes, you can cognitively understand where it goes, but it doesn't create the story that's behind the rhythm. And quickly, people need to get out of that. You need it at the start, but quickly you've got to get people out of the counting game, because otherwise they stay in that intellectual side, and then there's no release. And so if you go slowly, they can still go, right, I can get this, but it's not until once they're out of that early, just fumbling around, that they can really release. And that's why sometimes call and response and just making things happen and saying, look, don't be worried if you don't get exactly what I'm delivering here. Make it your own. And so you let people be at ease. And so it just shifts them into the fun and relaxed side of it. Remembering to breathe, of course, the best music is always played when you're relaxed. So all those things can help.
I love that. That shift that you're talking about, where you because as we learn music, it's, the first part of it is intellectual, but then there is that shift where you do move, where you do need to let go. And there's such magic in that, isn't there? Like flow. I think it was a Hungarian philosopher, Csikszentmihalyi, who studied flow, and to be able to get to that space in music where you're not thinking anymore, but you're just operating on this higher level of flow is quite incredible. I guess you would see that, not only experience it yourself, but see it with your students and the people that come to your classes a lot, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Like I think, and because there's no ceiling and people learn at all different rates, it's about giving them the opportunity to test whether they're competent at that particular skill. And if people are looking like, oh yeah, I've got this, you'll see the faces look around. And then a quick thing that I say to them is, now have a conversation with the person next to you and hold the rhythm.
Yeah.
What was your highlight of your day?
Yeah.
You know, if the rhythm's lost, then it's really not locked in there. It's not part of it.
Totally. Or, yeah, something that I've certainly done in lessons is if someone's playing a rock beat and then asking them what their address is, it's very hard for them to, you know, not
Get it out.
start speaking like this so that they're in time with the music. But
yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Right.
It's the rubbing the head or tapping the head and rubbing the belly.
Totally.
So yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about like your classes. So like if someone was going to come and join you for a 9-week stint, what would they come to expect and how would they feel?
Oh, well, yeah. The thing is, not a lot of people have a lot of expectations. I guess they have an idea of that, sitting around in the park, or they would like to be more musical, and they don't know where to start their musical sort of career, and they're not really looking for a career, so to speak. Most of the guys that come to my classes, they're looking just to be, have time with friends, or maybe it's a grandparent with the grandkids. Maybe it's somebody who wants to sit around the fire and just have a jam with their friends that play guitar, and they don't feel like they're competent enough to do guitar. But yeah, look, it's all sorts of people actually. There are professional musos that come. I've had Screaming Jets drummers come and be part of the drum classes. So there are people that come and be part of it. Having said that, what to expect? The latest class has got 30 people in it. Some classes are down around the 12 mark or so. And so we get all the polyrhythms of Africa, the different African rhythms there. There's a lot of call and response. There's play. It's fun. It's uplifting. So yeah, that's really what they also can expect is to have some sense of the rhythm when they leave after 9 weeks. Hopefully, that's the plan.
That's the idea.
They can play and know. Most people go, oh yeah, I can't remember the name of it, but at least I can remember some parts of it.
Yeah, it's a different kind of memory, isn't it? Learning rhythms and tell me, some of our listeners might be in the corporate world. Well, I definitely know we're in the corporate world because we have a lot of students, parents listening to the podcast.
Yeah.
Tell me some stories about maybe some of your corporate events that you've done, or some of the breakthroughs that you may have seen in adults.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, the corporate stuff is for all different. We do it for all different purposes. Some it's just an icebreaker, or it might be a motivator. So we have to be careful with the wording, but one of the things we use is drum explosion. Like hopefully nobody's come and found us yet as a terrorist potential, but really it does do that hard hit of the drum and the loud boom. Really is, again, part of the excitement of the human, anatomy. But it's just a drum, so you can be relaxed. What I've seen is with our icebreakers, we might play 5 minutes of a gig with the band and just really create a big, strong atmosphere and opening for a speaker. Others, we worked with getting the groups not only connected, but engaged. We talk about risk-taking and safety. We talk about creating dialogue, and obviously with the rhythm, there's all sorts of analogies that can be discussed with just, drumming. And also it can break up a day in a conference if you've got all day speaking. Sometimes the non-verbal communication of just bringing out the drums and having a good whack, it's not only just non-verbal, but it's physical as well, and it gets people energized. Some people use it after lunch, just to stop the food coma happening, their events. But yeah, we do work where sometimes we do little complex things where people might do an African clave, they're moving up and mingling. We might be sitting down and playing the djembe and interacting with each other, either in a large group or a small group. But over the course of, if it's drumming, the corporate teams, overall it's a sense of connection. It really can bring something more interesting to the conversations that can be had around the water filters, at work. It gives people a point of interest when they're talking to each other or interacting with each other, on the everyday, on the everyday conversations in the office.
Benjie, the word connection has come up quite a few times now. Why Why do you think that connection is so important in this day and age?
Yeah, well, like I said, it's a fundamental, I think fundamentally humans are social creatures. So we love our time out, some of us, because it's a bit overwhelming being with humans every minute of every day. But the reality is we don't want stressful connections. We're not talking about stress-related connections. That can be what's overwhelming. But having people that are really there, like a lot of what we do is create community around the drumming, not just for the fact that we want to, get everybody drumming and that's what we want all of the time. It's that real social fabric is created by healthy, positive human connections. So if I'm having a good day, you're going to be there for me. If I'm having a not so good day, you're going to be there for me. Or I've got at least somebody to call. All of us, they say, most of us have a couple of good friends, but you can count your really good friends on the one hand. And then outside that, you've got, it's like concentric circles of people that you keep out there outside. The further you get away, the looser the circle of friends are, and they become acquaintances or work colleagues or whatever it is. But the reality is, look, we're getting isolated. Why is that? I don't know. We're spending more time around more people. Everybody's converging in cities, but we're not having valuable, deep relationships that are, non-intimate, just every day. People are in cities not talking to each other, sitting next to each other on buses, trains, trams, going places, walking past each other, but people are feeling lonely. So this is just real connection stuff. It's fundamental connections. And drumming has been around for eons. So it's a primal thing, a primal tool that's been used for ceremonies, weddings, celebrations, war, all sorts of human activities over the course of the last millennia. And it's evolved with us, and so it's in us. That thunderous drum beat of a big bass drum does unite us. It's close to our heartbeat, and so it pulls us in together.
It's innate, isn't it?
It is.
And lastly, is there anything that you'd like to share with our listeners? Anything in particular?
Oh yeah, look, I'm excited about drumming. So I've been doing it 20 years and novelty still hasn't worn off, as you can tell. So I'm on a bit of a crusade to make drumming a household name, like particularly, djembe drumming. A household name like yoga, because say a decade ago, people really didn't know that yoga was going to be part of their lives. And there's so many people now doing yoga, studying yoga, doing moments of yoga that we talk about mindfulness, we talk about mind, body, spirit. Drumming is really a mindfulness in action. There's so much great evidence to show how elevates the focus and focus and studies in kids. It gives them great social interaction opportunities. It helps them listen, respect each other, all these things. So there's so many good things about drumming. It's not a silver bullet. Neither is yoga or anything else. But I'm really keen for more people to know how good it is, because we've got to break down that stereotyped image that I spoke of before about what drumming can do for other people and know what it can do for us.
So fabulous. Look, thank you so much, Benjie, for joining us today. I feel an incredible amount of gratitude to you for sharing your time with us and to our listeners as well. And I just hope that there's going to be, more pioneers in our industry. The music industry is a colourful place with both good and bad. And it's just so wonderful to have you as a pioneer in Australia, in our industry. So thank you so much for sharing today.
Oh, thanks so much, Bron. Yeah, pleasure. My pleasure to be here. And yeah, let's hope we see more of it.
We will. Look, on that, tell me where, before we wrap up, where can people find you? Like, how do we find you?
Yeah, right. Well, right now I'm based in Newcastle and I have been based here for a number of years, but I do travel, as you mentioned at the start. I cover the East Coast, so I travel up to Queensland to do festivals and gatherings, and I have been down to Tassie. So most of my work, though, is based around Newcastle because you travel with drums. I travel with drums, so an hour or so within reach of Newcastle. But having said that, I do travel where I have drums in other places. So look, come and check us out if you're in town here sometime.
And your website is www.earthenrhythms.org. I might just spell that for our listeners. EARTHEN Rhythms, RHYTHMS. The amount of people that spell be rhythmic incorrectly. I know rhythm is a particularly difficult word, but check them out, guys. Earthen Rhythms, they're absolutely fantastic, and they're really moving and shaking things up in Newcastle and in Australia. So thank you so much, Benjie Williams.
Thanks, Bron. Thank you very much.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Well done.
Harrison is the author and producer of the Be Rhythmic podcast, sound designed by Be Recording. We couldn't do this podcast without our wonderful tutors and students. For more episodes, go to berhythmic.com.au.